Good morning, everyone. I was on the verge of heading out this morning to fencing, but for some reason, I could not help but remember the pitiable document that a distressed student from New Jersey, an Algebra II honor student, recently sent me. And what I encountered within its pages was not an instrument of assessment, but really an indictment of how far we have allowed standards to fall. If these questions you're about to see, if this is what passes for honors, you really have to hesitate to imagine the standard track. What do they even do? Finger painting, perhaps? I mean, this is ridiculous. So, I'll give you a bit of background on why the student uh, sent me an email and what the situation is, and we're going to see several of those questions. I mean, it's just preposterous. And I agree, sometimes I get involved. I should have just forgotten the whole thing and gone horseback riding this morning or something, but I cannot. I owe it to my students. And even if they're not my personal student, I owe it to the young people who emailed me and who want me to address these situations. By the way, if you're new to the channel and you recently subscribed, like I told you yesterday, this channel also covers math topics. It is a math channel, but I also cover, of course, as you've seen, current events. But we do a lot of mathematics here. Most of the math that we do is pure mathematics, actually. And those of you who are interested in mathematics, I definitely recommend that you look up the playlist because we have different videos on the different topics. But the student wants me. I will just refer to the student as N, right? N, as in no. And I am going to share the email that he wrote to me recently because I printed it out. Actually, where was the document? I have to get the document. Hang on a minute, and I will show you what the background of this. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Alfred Cromwell, and I am the founder and president of City Tutoring. We have a lot of online classes, and no other academy, no other tutoring agency uh, does the sort of thing that we do. No one teaches pure mathematics. No tutoring agency. Most tutoring agencies are very transactional. You just pay a tutor, and they'll, like for example, you have varsity tutors, and it's just a waste of time and money. But we are the sort of tutoring agency that actually takes things very seriously, and you don't just become a number. You're actually a person. We care about you holistically. So if you are interested in pure mathematics, then I suggest you email us because starting in the fall semester, we have a lot of courses that begin to open. But anyway, this is the email that the student wrote to me. He writes, and again, N, this is for you. Thank you for your email. I'm doing this especially for you. So N says, Dear Mr. Cromwell, I have been a long time viewer of your channel and appreciate your mathematical and theological knowledge. However, I am in an honors, and the student writes honors, rightfully so in quotation marks, Algebra II class and completed its final exam. But this exam was ultimately a disrespect to math as a whole. This exam contained only 45 questions, and practically all of them were simple. For instance, one of the questions was find an angle theta coterminal to 769 degrees, where 0 degrees is less than or equal to theta, and theta is less than 360 degrees. This question is one of many that can be completed in less than a minute. And we were given a full 2 hours to complete the exam. Can you believe that, everyone? Can you honestly believe that you get all that time to complete something like that? I mean, it's a joke. And he also says this exam was also fully digital, besides getting scrap paper to write on. If you would be interested, well, and then he actually sent me a copy of the PDF copy of the exam. Now, I'm not going to go through all the questions, but they're all ridiculous, really. They're all, it's a joke. But we need to see just what the students in many, and this is a testament. This is, shows that so many of our schools have become, we're a laughing stock around the world. I mean, not even I think I would venture to say, not even the most mediocre school. At least I am familiar with Europe. I don't know, maybe Asia might be different. I have no idea, or South America. But I am very familiar with the different European countries. And I know that even the most mediocre school there would not have such an exam that would be a laughing stock for, especially in an honors class, right? So let's have a look at the questions. All right, so let's have a look at the first question, right? It says, I think this was the first question. I didn't number them out. Solve the system of equations graphed on the coordinate axes below. Y equals negative 1/4 x minus 6, y equals 3x plus 7. This is a serious question, by the way. They literally put this in. And to make matters worse, and somehow also more entertaining for some, the authors, whoever authored this exam, I mean, the fact that they included a fully drawn graph of the two lines directly beneath the question, as if the student might otherwise fail to identify that these, in fact, intersect, you can only assume the goal here was not anything but assessment, but maybe emotional reassurance. Now, if you are administering an honors Algebra 2 exam and your students still require, in an honors class, if they still require a visual aid to solve a system of two lines, not parabolas, not inequalities, not even piecewise functions, but straight lines with plain, rational coefficients, then you have failed to teach them anything resembling algebra. If there was such a thing as math justice, you would be arrested. This is not a question. This is a coloring book page. They might as well have added a speech bubble that says, "Can you help these lines find where they meet?" And the expected solution? A simple substitution or inspection that reveals the answer. But no, the student is spared even that minimal effort because the graph hands them the answer like a sympathetic butler. I mean, you can't make this up. This is an honors class. Imagine calling this rigor. Imagine calling this an honors class. Imagine offering this to a student who has presumably completed 2 full years of algebra and calling it a final exam. It would be more honest to ask, can you read a coordinate grid? And frankly, that would be a harder question for some. Now let's look at the following question. Now let's look at the following ones. Find the solution of the system of equations here. Well, I mean, at a glance, you might hope that this is leading somewhere, perhaps to a nonlinear twist, an embedded parameter, maybe a rational constraint, but no. This is simply a warm-up for substitution or elimination, the kind of problem a competent, even normal Algebra 1 student would dispatch before the bell rang. This simplifies almost immediately. You multiply the second equation by 2, subtract, and you're practically at the answer before you've uncapped your pen. You know, to call this an honors Algebra 2 is like inviting someone to a 5-course dinner and then you hand them a graham cracker. There's no nuance, there's no structure to unpack, there's no domain restrictions, there's no context. It's as if the exam writer, whoever that was, had 10 minutes to spare and thought, oh, yes, 2 linear equations. That should impress someone. It doesn't. It barely even registers. Look at question 3. They give you another system here. Now they're telling you to solve by substitution. It's a classic textbook example, but for pre-algebra. This is Algebra 1. It's almost too on the nose. And let's be honest, once the first equation, once it's already solved for x, the student is not being asked to reason. They're being asked at this point to just follow an instruction. You plug one expression into the other, distribute, combine like terms, and you're done. That's not a challenge. This is obedience practice. There's no modeling, there's no misdirection, there's no multiple representations, there's no proof of anything. There's no need here for any creative interpretation. It's really a paint by numbers routine dressed up in final exam ink. And so you might reasonably ask, where is the Algebra 2? Where is the honors? Where is the rigor, the function analysis, the rational expressions, the exponentials, the logarithmic systems, the growth? So far, I don't see exam questions for honors. It's almost like these questions would be the equivalent of asking an aspiring concert pianist to name the white keys. There are some logarithms, though I looked later on, but it's all a joke. Let's have a look at more. Look at this one. I mean, I can already see why you felt so insulted. This is an insult. It says, given g of x equals 4x minus 5, find g of 3. This really means evaluate g of 3, but sometimes it's worded like that. But that's it. Not evaluate and interpret, not determine the inverse, no composition of functions. Usually when I ask a question like this, I want the student to, especially in Algebra 2, to compose it with another function. No fog and goff here. Or maybe sometimes you might be asked to graph it with a constraint. No, you're simply plugging in 3. This is an Algebra 2. This is an IQ. It's probably more fitting to call it maybe an IQ test for monkeys. You substitute 3 for the x, and that's it. You're done. You might have expected a second part of the question, maybe like circle your answer carefully with a blue crayon. What is perhaps most disheartening here is not just the simplicity, but the utter lack of mathematical thought required. A problem like this really assumes that the student is incapable of holding a basic linear expression in short-term memory long enough to do a single-step calculation. It's the academic equivalent of being asked to press a button and then praise for your brilliance when something lights up. And on an honors Algebra 2 final. This question really would be more appropriately printed on the back of a cereal box. I'm not even going to show you the next quiz. It's the same thing. Evaluate, find the value of f of negative 3. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Look at this one. It's just unbelievable. Determine the domain of the following graph. I guess gone are the days when students were expected to deduce a domain from the algebraic form of a function. Do you all remember that? Consider discontinuities, square roots, asymptotes, or constraints of some kind. We used to have also linear programming as well. No, in this case, they even give them the graph already drawn for them, and they are asked to what? Look at it. You might ask, at this point, you might as well ask, what color is the apple? Holding it an inch from the student's face, of course. This is ridiculous. There is no function to interpret, no behavior to analyze. It's just a cartoon graph, and the implicit question, can you read from left to right? Apparently, this is enough to constitute, nowadays in New Jersey, even, I would venture to say most states, an honors level assessment. A little gentle stroll along the x-axis. Imagine if we did this in literature exams. What is the central theme of this poem? And the poem omitted, theme provided, of course. Again, the student is not challenged. They are being indulged. It's a miracle the exam doesn't offer them a hint in the margin. Oh, the domain goes from left to right. You're doing amazing, sweetie. If you must include a domain question like this on an honors Algebra 2 final, At least require them to extract it from a rational function or a radical or an inequality, something that demands a little bit more thought. But what in God's name is this? All right, here's the next one that caught my attention. What is the leading coefficient of the polynomial defined below? So at long last, we get a polynomial with more than two terms. You might be tempted briefly, I felt finally a flicker of hope. But that hope is dashed the moment you read the actual question. That's it. Just the leading coefficient, not right in standard form. Well, the next one does ask about that at least, but no question about describing the end behavior, not classify degree and sign, identify the number of real zeros or sketch, no relative maximums, relative minimums, no transformations, no factoring, no. Just what is the leading coefficient? And it's a question that's so superficial, so elementary, you begin to wonder if the exam is secretly trying to disguise itself as a parody. Are you a New Jersey teacher and you wrote this? Do you recognize was this a parody? I hope so, because if not, you don't belong in a math class. You should never be teaching math. How dare you? Especially not on honors, not our honor students. Let us review what is being asked here. The student, you're basically being asked to scan the expression, pick out the term with the highest exponent, in this case, x to the sixth, and say whatever the number is in front of it, in this case. For those who are not familiar with what I'm talking about, some of you are not math people, I know. But that's the entire task here. This is not algebra. It requires, not honors algebra anyway. There's no manipulation required, no understanding of structure, and not even any algebraic manipulation here in the algebraic sense. It's just an ability to visually identify the tallest exponent and name the coefficient like one's calling out bingo numbers. We used to teach students, and we still do at City Tutoring, because we do not water down our curriculum. That's why people come to us. We used to teach them to analyze polynomials, to sketch them, to derive them from given roots, to describe their turning points and the long-term behavior. But now we're simply asking them to circle a number. You may as well ask how many letters are in the word polynomial and grade that as mathematics. What a bunch of fools there are in our schools. Next one here. Perform the operation. At this point in the exam, the pretense has dropped entirely. We are no longer even pretending this is Algebra 2, let alone honors Algebra 2. We are simply this is polynomial subtraction in its most unadorned introductory form. There's no variable raised to, for example, irrational exponents, no rational expressions to combine, no functional context, no interpretation, no twist, just a big, maybe, I guess they figured that you still can't figure out that if there's a minus sign in front of a parentheses, it's the inverse, so you switch the signs inside the second parentheses. This is the sort of problem that you give to a 13-year-old when you're introducing polynomials for the first time. You might even hear the teacher say, now be careful with your signs, right? But this is an honors class. Even the layout is juvenile. Parentheses minus parentheses. It's like a visual training wheel, just in case you might forget what subtraction is. No mention of the associative properties, no mention of the field properties, the axioms, no mention of anything like that. The operation itself is really a one-step simplification, 2 at most. And just like that, it's over. No factoring, no solving, no function behavior. Once again, no domain restrictions, nothing, no reason to care. This is not an exam question. It's the algebraic equivalent of sorting laundry. You group the like terms, you tidy them up, and you're done. You see, the tragedy is not the presence of this question, because even on our placement test, we have a similar one to test your Algebra 1 and 2 skills, but the tragedy is its placement on a final exam allegedly designed for advanced honor students who are taking a second year of algebra. It reveals what the course has truly become. It's really a long, slow, cautious walk through material that should have been mastered long ago. Now, since I'm running out of time, I can't make a comment on every single question, but I just wanted to show you all. These are some of the more, it's not even challenging, but these are a little bit more serious. They ask you here, use the quadratic formula, simplify the expression to a plus bi. That's okay. Although this is still, to me, this is still algebra 1. And even if it's not, it should be a little bit more involved. Then they ask you to evaluate these imaginary I to the 13th, I to the 27. They ask you to simplify this one to a plus bi form to perform the multiplication here. That's okay. Certainly nowhere near the rigor that we ask at City Tutoring, though. And those of you who have taken the exam, you know what I'm talking about. Some of you have you paid for the exam at City Tutoring, so you know that this is a joke. Then they have a page here where, again, this is more like it. Find all real and imaginary solutions to the equation. And then they ask you to use long division to find the result of this when you divide by 2x plus 3. So if there is a remainder, express the result in the form of q of x plus r x divided by b of x, right? So then they ask you about synthetic division. That's a good one too. That's good to know. Then they have a word problem. They ask you about logarithms, which is good. That's a good sign. But still, all of this should be algebra 1. And even if it's not, none of these questions, I insist, are anywhere near the level of an honors class. This is very basic manipulation. And then they have here condense the logarithm, right? Log A minus 2 log C. Pretty basic stuff. Solve for x. They have an exponential expression here, and they say round to nearest hundredth. And then they have some triangle questions. Find the exact value of the sine of x in simplest form. This should be very easy also. They have more here that you can see. But look at the last question. Find an angle theta coterminal to 769 degrees, where 0 degrees is less than or equal to theta. That was the less than 300, and theta is less than 360 degrees. This is what I told you at the beginning of the video that the student was asking about this. It's ridiculous. I'm running out of time. I cannot believe that this is happening in our school. This is still hard for me to digest. So I am sorry, N, that you are going through that. All I can tell you is, keep doing what you have the right attitude. Keep doing what you're doing. If you need any help, let me know, and I can provide you with some sources. But I am sorry that your parents are paying taxes. New Jersey has very high property taxes, and the fact that you're getting this is crap. Literally, excuse my language. This is a total rubbish. They're probably paying an arm and a leg for property taxes up there. And this is the education that you're getting. You don't deserve that. Our young people don't deserve this nonsense. So teachers, please do better. Educators, please do better. Parents, be vigilant of what is going on in our schools, because this is outrageous. This should make you angry, this sort of thing. Thank you all. I'm going to go horseback riding because I'm done. I'm done for today. I can't do this anymore. We'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll continue with matrices, the properties of matrices, and some more interesting things.